hearing is to examine the challenges federal agencies face in recruiting, developing, and retaining a skilled cyber workforce that is prepared to secure and defend the homeland against rapidly evolving cyber threats. Specifically, this hearing will identify strategies and solutions to bolster and expand a capable cyber workforce, including by examining the effectiveness of ongoing federal efforts. Fortunately, Chairman Green is unable to join us today due to a death in the family, so I'll be presiding over this hearing in his place. I now recognize myself to read Chairman Green's opening statement on his behalf. Experts predict that by the end of 2024, a cyber attack will strike every 13 seconds. That's 6,822 attacks a day, or about 2 million by the end of the year. It's easy to believe those predictions by looking at where we are today, whether it's Chinese-backed Volt Typhoon infiltrating our critical infrastructure, or major ransomware attacks such as the Change Healthcare breach. Today's complex and growing cyber threat landscape has brought America to an inflection point. To stay ahead of our adversaries, we must improve our cyber defenses. Throughout our history, America's best defense during any conflict has been its people. Our fortitude, work ethic, and dedication make us resilient in the face of any threat. Therefore, increasing competition in cyberspace is not and cannot be different. The challenge is too big for the public and private sectors to address alone, and our cyber professionals must be equipped with the right tools and skills and offered the right incentives to succeed. It is alarming, then, that our nation is suffering from such a major cyber workforce gap. We currently need at least 500,000 cyber professionals if we hope to protect and defend our way of life. Now, that's just not any 500,000 people. We need 500,000 skilled, talented cyber workers dedicated to contending with the threats of today while preparing for the threats of tomorrow. During World War I, walls were papered with an iconic poster of Uncle Sam pointing his finger at every passerby declaring, "I want you." It was a call to action that was born out of a time of national crisis, and it was a call that Americans answered. We find ourselves in a similar moment today. Our nation needs a capable cyber workforce to defend the digital infrastructure we depend on daily. We need Americans in critical areas like cloud computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and zero trust. We need students with fresh skills and bright ideas. We need tenured professionals with deep-seated expertise. We need mid-career individuals who are inspired to enter the cyber field and have the zeal to learn new skills. And we need Americans to fill entry-level positions that shouldn't require a four-year degree. America's need for cyber talent is the greatest within the federal government. Agencies are facing some of the toughest threats in recent history, each with mounting sophistication and frequency. While agencies work to protect themselves from threats such as malicious insiders, supply chain exploitation, and commercial spyware, they are also protecting, mitigating, and defending against these threats for state and local organizations, small businesses, and civilians. This is a large mandate for such a small ranks. So why are we having trouble bringing talented cyber workforce into public service? Defending our networks requires us to examine this question closely. There are a few key issues at play that I hope our witnesses will discuss further today. While cybersecurity positions are coveted and pay above average levels in many cases, federal cybersecurity pay is just not high enough to compete with similar private sector positions and attract the right talent. Additionally, federal agencies experience an acute skills gap because agencies have historically valued four-year degrees over practical experience. This has unnecessarily narrowed the pool of prospective hires to those who may not have on-the-paper knowledge, but not the requisite competencies. Federal hiring practices compound the issue, often resulting in a bureaucratic, burdensome process that misaligns what agencies say they need with what they actually need. Finally, while career pathways into federal cyber jobs are improving, this simply isn't happening fast enough. The pathways are few and notoriously slow. While much more is needed to be done, both sides of the aisle have recognized that a robust and prepared cyber workforce is at the core of protecting our cybersecurity interests. In 2017, President Trump issued an executive order on strengthening the cybersecurity of federal networks and critical infrastructure, which addressed the growth and sustainment of a skilled cyber workforce. In July 2023, the White House released the National Cyber Workforce Education Strategy, which outlines a roadmap to expand the national cyber workforce, including bolstering access to cyber education and training. Federal agencies have also taken this challenge upon themselves. For example, NSA's National Centers of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity collaborates with academia to encourage cyber competency development among students and actively engage in solutions to cyber workforce challenges. This program has become the gold standard in cybersecurity education, which is why I think it is important we codify it into law. While my NDAA amendment was not included this year to do just that, I am now exploring other pathways. As an Army veteran, it's Mr. Green, not me, I believe an ROTC-like program would be an effective and rewarding way to build a prepared cyber workforce across the federal government. Although we have programs that fall into this category today, such as Cyber Corps Scholarship for Service program, we must maximize and scale these efforts, improve retention, and potentially establish other ROTC-like programs quickly to fill a specific skills gap and critical positions. As chairman of the Committee on Homeland Security, I know that protecting the cyber border is just as important as our efforts to secure our physical border. This is why accelerating the United States' efforts to address the cyber workforce gap has been my top priority this year, so much so that I will soon be introducing legislation to grow our cyber workforce and sustain a steady pipeline each year. I want to thank our witnesses for being here to help us understand the challenges you have experienced, initiatives you have undertaken, and opportunities you see to strengthen our cyber workforce. Your agencies have played a leading role in promoting cyber workforce efforts, so I have no doubt that your unique perspectives will help us chart the path to cultivate a cyber workforce that is prepared to protect and defend our nation from increasingly complex threats in cyberspace. I now recognize the ranking member, Ms. Ramirez from Illinois for her opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Gabarino. Good morning. Before I begin, I want to extend my condolences to Chairman Green and his family as they mourn the passing of his mother-in-law. And turning in today's topic, I would like to thank the chairman for holding this hearing on addressing our nation's cyber workforce shortage. And as we see increased cyber threats from adversary nation states and criminal gangs, we continue to invest in developing our cybersecurity talent pool, and it'll be essential in defending the federal government and its critical infrastructure. This committee has prioritized addressing the cyber workforce challenges for years, and it's passed important legislation to ensure that DHS and CISA continue to support cyber workforce development. Last Congress, for example, the committee secured the enactment of Representative Swalwell's Industrial Control Systems Cybersecurity Training legislation. Earlier this Congress, the committee passed Representative Jackson Lee's legislation authorizing CISA's effort to provide cybersecurity training to DHS employees. I really hope that we can work together to secure passage of Representative Jackson Lee's important bill by the full House this Congress. And while these legislative efforts have been helpful, we also know that there's still a lot of work to be done. Fortunately, the Biden administration has released a comprehensive cyber workforce and education strategy that sets a roadmap for how the executive branch and Congress can better support workforce development efforts. Considering the wide range of federal agencies, state and local governments, and private entities involved in cyber workforce training and education, this is the kind of leadership from the White House that is critical to ensuring that we have a coordinated, we have a whole of government and whole of nation effort. I'm glad to see the administration's new report on the workforce strategy implementation, and I do look forward to hearing more today about how the implementation is going and how Congress can support this very critical effort. In particular, I support the administration's commitment to skill-based hiring and efforts like DHS's Cyber Internship Program. I look forward to working with DHS and many of my colleagues here to authorize a Cyber Internship Program available to individuals from high school through grad school so that we ensure that the department continues to develop its next generation of cyber talent. And I appreciate that the federal government has some unique challenges in recruiting and retaining top cyber talent. When the federal government must compete with the private sector that we know offers higher pay and more flexible hiring, we know the federal government risks losing skilled cyber security practitioners. And so I look forward to hearing from the Department of Defense and Homeland Security today on how we can address this challenge. I also hope to hear what authorities Congress can provide to ensure the federal department agencies responsible for leading our cyber defense have the talent necessary to keep our nation secure. And as we consider efforts to address our cyber workforce gap going forward, there are some key points that I want to make sure that we're keeping in mind. First, one key advantage we have over our adversaries, let me say, is our diverse population. To fill cyber workforce positions, we have to focus on outreach to women, to people of color, to rural populations, and others who are not adequately represented currently in the cyber workforce. And we can't simply address cyber workforce shortage without including everyone, and doing so with an intentional effort on the part of the government and the private sector. That is why Ranking Member Thompson authored legislation to establish a DHS Intelligence and Cybersecurity Diversity Fellowship Program, and I'm glad to see the diverse young people who've already participated in the program. We must continue to build and expand on similar efforts to bring more people from all walks of life into the federal government's cyber workforce. Additionally, we have seen rapid technological advances in recent years with the growth of artificial intelligence, showing how the skills necessary for cybersecurity are constantly evolving. We must ensure that our cybersecurity training efforts reflect the latest skills and that our cybersecurity workforce continues to receive adequate training throughout their careers. AI will not solve our cyber workforce shortage, but it will change how cyber defenders do their jobs. So education and training programs have to reflect that reality. Keeping these considerations in mind, I hope that our committee can work together in a bipartisan way to expand and to strengthen our cyber talent pool. Our witness expertise will help inform our efforts, and I look forward to your testimony. Before I close, however, I do want to extend the committee's well wishes to Congresswoman Jackson Lee as she battles pancreatic cancer. As a long-standing member of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Protection Subcommittee, Congresswoman Jackson Lee has been a leading advocate for strengthening our nation's cyber workforce, and I look forward for her continued advocacy on this important issue. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez, and I share your thoughts with and our prayers with Ms. Jackson Lee. She is a great member of the subcommittee that I chair. Always has great questions and very thoughtful ones, and sometimes ones I wish I came up with myself. So we all wish her a speedy recovery. Other members of the committee are reminded that opening statements may be submitted for the record. I'm pleased to have our distinguished witnesses before us today. I ask that our witnesses please rise and raise their right hands. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you'll give before the Committee on Homeland Security of the United States House of Representatives will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Thank you. Please be seated. I would now like to formally introduce our witnesses. Mr. Eric Hysen serves as the Chief Information Officer for the Department of Homeland Security. CIO, Mr. Hysen is responsible for strategically aligning the department's information technology, personnel resources, and assets, including security, infrastructure, and delivery to support core DHS missions and activities. In September 2023, Ms. Hysen was named as the Department of Homeland Security's first Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer. He previously was a senior fellow at the National Conference on Citizenship, where he led projects to use technology, data, and design to address pressing public policy challenges. He also worked in state government, helping to launch the California Office of Digital Innovation and Philanthropy, supporting nonprofits working to advance immigration and criminal justice reform. Mr. Hysen graduated with honors in computer science from Harvard University. He has published research in crowdsourcing and workflow design. Ms. Leslie Beavers is a career member of the Senior Executive Service and the DoD's Principal Deputy CIO. In this capacity, she assists the CIO in advising the Secretary of Defense on information management, information technology, and information assurance, as well as non-intelligence space systems, critical satellite communications, navigation and timing programs, spectrum, and telecommunications matters. Ms. Beavers also leads engagements with the defense agencies and field activity CIOs and drives strategic resource planning across the IT and cybersecurity domains. Prior to joining the CIO, Ms. Beavers served as the Director of Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance Enterprise Capabilities. In this capacity, she led She led OUSD's Defense Intelligence Digital Transformation Campaign Plan, known as Project Herald. Additionally, Ms. Beavers has over 15 years' experience in the private sector working in the film, TV, healthcare, and oil and gas industries. She holds a bachelor's degree in political science from the U.S. Air Force Academy and an MBA in finance with honors from South University. Mr. Rodney Petersen is the director of the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, advancing cybersecurity education and workforce development at the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the United States. He previously serves as the managing director of the EDU Cause Washington office and is a senior government relations officer. He founded and directed the EDU Cause cybersecurity program and was the lead for the Higher Education Information Security Council. He also worked at the University of Maryland as the director of IT policy and planning in the office of the vice president and chief information officer. He also held the role of campus compliance officer in the office of the president. He received his law degree from Wake Forest University and bachelor's degrees in political science and business administration from Alma College. He was awarded a certificate as an advanced graduate specialist in education policy, planning, and administration from the University of Maryland. Mr. Seeyew Mo serves as the Assistant National Cyber Director of Cyber Workforce Training and Education at the Office of National Cyber Director. In his role, Mr. Mo leads and coordinates the implementation of the White House's National Cyber Workforce and Education Strategy. He believes in taking a holistic view, doctrine, people, and technology to make advancements in cyber workforce and digital safety awareness. Mr. Mo is an expert in the intersection of cybersecurity, technology, and national security with 18 years of experience spanning tech, development, policymaking, and political campaigning. Thank the witnesses for being here today. I now recognize Mr. Hysen for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Chairman Garbarino, Congresswoman Ramirez, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Every day, over 8,000 cybersecurity professionals across the Department of Homeland Security put their skills to use defending our nation. CISA threat hunters search proactively through networks to identify and stop suspicious activities. Secret Service agents investigate complex cyber-enabled financial crimes. Teams from Homeland Security investigations catch perpetrators of child sexual exploitation through cutting-edge digital forensics techniques. And our IT specialists across the department work to secure our own networks, systems, and data and stay ahead of our adversaries. Our cybersecurity professionals are deeply talented and dedicated to serving their country, but they are too few. The department has nearly 2,000 vacancies for cybersecurity positions and struggles, like every government agency, to recruit and retain talent in an incredibly competitive field. I have dedicated much of my career to this challenge. After working as a software engineer in Silicon Valley, I left the private sector to co-found the United States Digital Service, which has now recruited hundreds of technologists for government tours of duty. There, I saw how recruiting and retaining tech talent in government requires a comprehensive approach, actively recruiting out to communities, particularly those underrepresented in our field, to build awareness of public service pathways, leveraging flexible compensation and hiring authorities, streamlining our hiring and onboarding processes, and building a culture that fosters innovation and collaboration. Today, I will highlight how we are working to do each of those things in support of our own workforce. In November of 2021, DHS launched the Cybersecurity Talent Management System, or CTMS, a transformational effort that offers hiring processes, compensation systems, and career progression that are far closer to what I was used to seeing in Silicon Valley than to traditional federal HR. Since its launch, we have received nearly 25,000 applications, issued over 345 offers, and currently have 189 employees at all levels working in my office, CISA, and FEMA. While CTMS is delivering significant results, its rollout was not without challenges. It took us too long from receiving the authority to launch the program and begin hiring under it, and our initial rate of hires has been slower than expected. We are learning from these efforts and continuously improving CTMS to position the department for long-term success. In addition, we have established a variety of internship and fellowship programs to create pathways for students and early career professionals, including the Secretary's Honors Program, Cybersecurity Internship Program, and Intelligence and Cybersecurity Diversity Fellowship. These programs have welcomed hundreds of participants to date and are building the future of our cyber workforce. We are also building innovative programs to attract talent in critical cybersecurity enabling fields, such as AI and emerging technologies. For example, this February, we launched the DHS AI Corps, an effort to hire 50 experts to support the use of AI across the department. We've seen incredible interest so far and are well on our way towards this hiring goal, with new AI Corps members coming from top technology companies and from across government and civil society. Finally, training and development of our existing workforce is also vital. We are building a DHS IT Academy to create standard technical orientations for all new employees, develop a rigorous training and rotation program for entry-level hires, and offer upskilling opportunities for employees to learn new and emerging skills. These programs are just some of the tools we are using across DHS to strengthen our cybersecurity workforce. There is no single initiative or policy to address all workforce challenges, and every organization that relies on this talent across the public and private sectors is similarly looking at a combination of efforts. I look forward to our continued partnership with Congress to enable us to attract and retain talent in this incredibly competitive market. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hysen. I now recognize Ms. Beavers for 5 minutes to summarize her opening statement.
Good morning, Chairman Garbarino and Congresswoman Ramirez, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today on an issue of critical importance to our national security, the Department of Defense's efforts to cultivate and strengthen our cyber workforce. As the Principal Deputy Chief Information Officer, I lead a team dedicated to providing strategic direction, oversight, and technical expertise to secure and modernize the Department's information technology, enhancing warfighting, command, control, and communications, and cultivate a digital workforce. Each of these missions is critical to our warfighters and would be impossible without the right people. The Department of Defense must adapt to emerging threats and develop a skilled workforce to tackle national security challenges in the global landscape. Cyber threats, cloud computing, and software modernization are crucial for safeguarding national interests and supporting warfighters. A skilled workforce is needed to innovate, develop, and implement cyber capabilities for sustained superiority. Last year, the Department of Defense released the DoD Cyber Workforce Strategy, developed in coordination with various components, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, U.S. Cyber Command, and the military services. This strategy aligns with the 2022 National Defense Strategy's imperative to cultivate the workforce we need. The strategy identifies a pressing need for a cultural shift in managing the department's most valuable asset, our people, and laid the groundwork for a nationwide transformation in cyber education through collaboration among academia, employers, and government leaders. It also creates an opportunity for innovation in the department's approach to recruiting, training, educating, and certifying our workforce. The strategy aims to achieve success through regular workforce capability assessments, talent management programs, cultural shift, and partnerships to enhance operational effectiveness and career growth. A keystone effort within the cyber workforce strategy is the Cyber Defense Workforce Framework, which is a catalog of cyberspace skills and roles needed across the department. This framework helps us identify and focus on critical, hard-to-fill specialties, recognizing that it will evolve as it adapts with technology. We are also excited about our newly established Cyber Academic Engagement Office, which will be the consolidated focal point for cyber-related activities carried out between the department, academic stakeholders, and in the future with federal partners such as the Department of Education, NIST, FBI, and DHS's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency to collaborate on cyber education programs for the benefit of the whole of government. We also have educational initiatives like the DoD Cyber Service Academy, which offers scholarships and grants to bolster the nation's cyber workforce and grants scholarships to non-DoD students enrolled in National Centers of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity, as well as to DoD civilians and service members pursuing master's and doctoral degrees. In 2024, the Cybersecurity Academy awarded it recruitment scholarships to 174 non-government students supporting their studies in cyberspace-related competencies. To that end, the Department of Defense actively participates in the Office of the National Cyber Director's Federal Cyber Workforce Group. We align our cyber workforce strategies in partnership with the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Commerce to ensure a whole-of-government approach. DoD understands that interagency collaboration not only establishes standards for cyber across the federal government, it also facilitates the development of professional competencies that define future cyber work in the government and the private sector alike. We're reevaluating cyber education and certification, acknowledging that traditional college degrees are not always necessary. DoD is exploring faster routes to cybersecurity qualifications. With the Department of Labor, we're creating the Federal Cybersecurity Apprenticeship Program to set standards for critical roles. By partnering with the Undersecretary for Acquisition and Sustainment, DoD CIO is promoting registered apprenticeship programs to diversify our workforce and remove educational barriers. This approach aims to bring in skilled workers through non-traditional paths. The Department of Defense is committed to strengthening our cybersecurity posture through the development and management of a highly skilled cyber workforce. A cultural shift in managing the department's most valuable asset, our people, is underway. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Beavers. I now recognize Mr. Petersen for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Garbarino and Congresswoman Ramirez and members of the committee. I am Rodney Petersen. I am the director of the NIST program office at NIST, and I'm pleased to testify before you today. I want to briefly share 3 stories. Devani Nelson started her journey into the cybersecurity field after experiencing a series of personal and career setbacks as a single mom. She eventually chose to pivot careers from biology to cybersecurity, and an organization provided her essential financial support along the way to enable her to complete her education and eventually acquire a good job as a junior cybersecurity engineer in a healthcare company. Jimmy Mehanovic left high school before completing his diploma and for the next 10 years worked hard, physically demanding shifts as a commercial truck driver. As a result of the impact of the pandemic on the trucking industry, which coincided with the death of his father, who had worked in IT, Jimmy completed a cybersecurity certificate program on weekends while continuing to work. After acquiring that credential, Jimmy received a good job as an information security associate with a financial services company. Shane Wallace, who grew up in a military family, enlisted in the Army as a combat medic. He concurrently pursued a degree in healthcare administration. He held various leadership roles, oversaw complex logistics operations, and spearheaded crucial medical initiatives. His passion for technology led him to complete a training program on cloud computing for transitioning veterans that led him into a good job as a junior engineer. These are just 3 stories of individuals who have pursued a career in cybersecurity through alternative pathways, and their journey provide the answer to the question for this hearing: how to find workers to address America's cybersecurity workforce gap. NIST is best known for the NIST framework that provides a common taxonomy for describing cybersecurity work. It's used by employers, education and training providers, and learners, including students, job seekers, and employees. The NIST framework components of work roles and competency areas are key to navigating the CyberSeek website, a tool that helps career seekers discover cybersecurity careers. NIST also uses its convening power to support a community coordinating council that includes communities of interest on topics such as cybersecurity apprenticeships, competitions, diversity and inclusion, K-12 cybersecurity education, and more. The council also includes working groups that help achieve NIST's strategic plan goals and objectives. The first goal is to promote the discovery of cybersecurity careers and multiple pathways. We hold a Cybersecurity Career Week campaign each fall to help career seekers discover the variety of types of careers in cybersecurity and the multiple learning pathways. The second goal is to transform learning to build and sustain a skilled and diverse workforce. We prioritize hands-on learning experiences and performance-based assessments that measure capabilities to perform NIST framework tasks. The third goal is to modernize the talent management process to address cybersecurity skills gaps. We support the capability of organizations and sectors to more effectively recruit, hire, develop, and retain the talent needed to manage cybersecurity-related risk. The fourth goal seeks to expand use of the NIST framework. We promote the benefits of standardizing education and workforce programs, including alignment to the NIST cybersecurity framework, the NIST privacy framework, and other cybersecurity guidance. The final goal in the NIST strategic plan seeks to drive research on effective practices for cybersecurity workforce development. We use those research results to inform programs, curriculum design, learning opportunities, ensure equity, and much more. NIST hosts several key events throughout the year, and these events bring together stakeholders to showcase best practices, highlight emerging trends, and inspire action. We also produce and share several resources, including a cybersecurity apprenticeship finder and a listing of free and low-cost online cybersecurity learning content. In conclusion, the recent 15th Annual NIST Conference served to celebrate the growth and progress towards fulfilling our mission to create an integrated ecosystem of cybersecurity education, training, and workforce development. However, we must continuously strive to prepare, grow, and sustain the cybersecurity workforce that the public and private sectors need to safeguard our national security and promote America's economic prosperity. So thank you for the opportunity to testify today on NIST cybersecurity education and workforce activities, and look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Petersen. I now recognize Mr. Mo for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Good morning, Chairman Garbarino, Congresswoman Ramirez, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today with some of ONCD's closest federal partners about the critical demand for cyber workforce. While this challenge to meet this demand is daunting, this is also an opportunity. Filling these jobs is necessary to advance our national security and our economic prosperity. Whether one serves in the public or the private sector, a career in cyber can put you on the front lines, protecting and defending our digital way of life. There's an abundance of talented individuals in every corner of our country who can help us meet this demand. It's up to us to remove barriers and broaden pathways for them to get into these good-paying, meaningful jobs in cyber. There are a number of challenges we must overcome to build the cyber workforce this nation needs. First, many Americans haven't considered a job in cyber at all. They may assume the job are narrow, highly technical, and done by a hacker in a hoodie in a dark room. Oftentimes, they haven't seen anyone like them, or they know who has taken a path into a cyber career. And even for those who are interested, there are barriers to entry, even if they have the skills to do the job. Second, while we have good education and workforce development systems, they are struggling to keep up with the increasing demand for cyber talent. We need more educators, training programs, and equipment for hands-on learning of critical cyber skills. And third and finally, we know that many of the best solutions are unique to each community and its partners. And right now, there are not enough locally driven efforts to connect individuals to training, to jobs, and services. We call this the locally driven ecosystem model. The administration is driving a whole-of-nation approach to connect Americans to these good-paying, meaningful jobs in cyber. First, the foundation of this effort is the National Cyber Workforce and Education Strategy that ONCD developed in collaboration with 34 federal agencies and hundreds of key external stakeholders. Second, the federal government cannot solve this issue alone, and stakeholder collaboration is critical to success. Over 100 organizations have made voluntary commitments to grow and hire cyber talent. Third, our approach recognizes that the jobs we need to fill are not just in IT, but across industry and within companies both large and small. That's why we're making cyber an integral part of other workforce and education priorities to unlock resources and new partnerships to grow the nation's cyber workforce in utility companies, agriculture, energy, healthcare, education, manufacturing, and more. As a result, we can report on our initial actions to date. To open up cyber careers to all Americans and remove unnecessary barriers, we are focusing on skills. The administration is leading by example by modernizing the federal hiring process and fully embracing skills-based approaches for IT positions. Furthermore, the pivot extends to federal IT and cyber contractors across the country. To strengthen education and workforce development systems, we are identifying federal investments to expand opportunities through quality hands-on training and learning programs such as cyber clinics and earn and learn registered apprenticeship programs. The National Security Agency provided grants to launch cyber clinics in Louisiana, Minnesota, Nevada, and Virginia. And the Department of Labor is now serving more than 13,000 cyber apprentices across the country as the result of the work initiated under the 120-day Cybersecurity Registered Apprenticeship Sprint with partners and continued through the Registered Apprenticeship Executive Order. To increase the use of locally driven ecosystem models, we have convened stakeholders across the country to establish or expand their ecosystems and to share best practices. Most importantly, we know that the best solutions come not solely from Washington, D.C., but from the innovative partnerships and ideas we find in communities across the country, just like in each of your district. We've made a lot of progress, and there's a lot more work to be done. The demand for cyber talent will continue to grow as the world becomes increasingly digitized. We are committed to be working with Congress to connect Americans to good-paying, meaningful jobs in cyber that advance our national security and economic prosperity. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mo. I'll just say the committee's not going to hold it against you for stealing some of our cyber talent. They did call votes, like they said they would. So we're going to now take a short recess, and we'll reconvene 10 minutes after votes, which will probably be in about a half hour or so. So you're in recess. Committee will come to order. Thank you all for the witnesses for waiting. Members will now be recognized by order of seniority for their 5 minutes of questioning. I remind everyone to please keep their questioning 5 minutes. An additional round of questioning may be called after all members have been recognized. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questions. While we often discuss the workforce gap, we overlook those who are currently in our workforce. They may not possess the right skills to keep up with cyber threat landscape, even though they fill critical roles. Mr. Petersen, what does it mean to be a qualified cyber professional today?
So we would turn to qualifications based on our NIST framework that identifies work to be performed and knowledge or skills that a worker would need. And as we've said through our testimony, that can be acquired through a variety of different ways, through education, through training, through on-the-job experience, work-based learning experiences. So for us, qualifications start with something like the NIST framework as a standard. And then I think secondly, to your point, it doesn't always have to come externally. It could be existing workers who can be reskilled or upskilled into cybersecurity.
Mr. Mo, how do we professionalize the cyber workforce while we move away from four-year degrees?
I think that's why I want to focus on skill-based approaches. When you think about skills, once we sort of like figure out how to map out the skills that we need, then match it with, assessment on how someone have the skills. That's how we can do it. The reality here is that you don't need a cyber in your job title to actually be doing cyber work these days, right? So that's sort of like the key point here. So as we are trying to kind of map out the professionalism, to professionalize the whole cyber workforce, we have to think about broadly the whole workforce in itself.
So I have spoken to countless CISOs from Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. They are all moving to skills-based hiring, away from degree-based hiring. So for the federal government, what are some of those effective pathways or for skills-based training and hiring that you've seen or explored?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. When we travel around the country, we see things like registered apprenticeship. It's one of the models. Work-based training is another model that we really like. Again, when you take a skills-based approach, we need a fundamental shift in thinking about not on an individual basis, but more of creating a team with complementary skills. So some of the successful companies, they're trying to build teams with skills with advanced, people with advanced cyber skills and people with early entry career skills. Then you kind of like map out and have a team that can do the job and deliver on the mission.
So do you work with, you said you were traveling across the country, with some certain apprenticeships. Has there been any work with community colleges or technical schools?
Yeah,
for talent?
Absolutely. The very first visit that the National Cyber Director did was to the Community College of Baltimore County to essentially elevate cyber, to make sure that people with 2-year college degrees understand that there's a pathway into cyber career. And then we also went to Fayetteville Technical Community College because they kind of have a pathway for veterans and their spouses to get into cyber as well. The key here, though, is it's more than just one institution. This only works if the 2-year college are working with the 4-year colleges and universities, and they are also working with the K-12 school districts locally, and the private sector employer involved in telling the schools what they need, so that all of them come together to figure out how to build that pipeline. And that's the approach that we're pushing here.
I appreciate that. I could ask you all questions for a while, but I only have a minute left. I do want to focus on harmonization. Mr. Mo, at a HISGAC hearing on regulatory harmonization earlier this month, your colleagues stressed how harmonization requires leadership from OECD and Congress. Blog post from Director Coker this month also called for Congress to work with the administration to help craft cyber regulatory standards. None of this acknowledges Congress has already done this by passing Seeyew. I'm concerned that the White House is not pushing back enough against duplicative regulation at odds with congressional intent, particularly as the SEC since introduced its cyber incident disclosure rule, which only adds to compliance, leads to public disclosure of sensitive information, drives talents away. I have heard people say that their cyber teams have plenty of burnout, and CISOs are leaving because they are now possibly facing personal liability. Why is ONC urging Congress to act on cyber harmonization when we already have done so?
Thank you for that question, Congressman. Harmonization is definitely a big part of what ONCD is working on right now. But my remit in the office is implementing the National Cyber Workforce and Education Strategy. I'm happy to work with you and our legislative team to find you the right person to get the answer that you deserve. I will take that on the record and get back to you.
I appreciate that. Just repetitiveness. Back to the administration. No more cyber rules. Harmonization, please. I now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes of question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And at the outset, let me, in the chairman's absence, express my condolences to his family. Let me welcome our witnesses to the hearing today. We have Rhode Island, Michigan, had Louisiana, and myself, if my accent doesn't give me away, I'm from Mississippi. And as a top Democrat on the committee, one of the things that we've been interested in is not only diversifying the workforce, but also saying if you leave the Beltway, you can find a lot of talented people. We have 100 plus historically black colleges in America, some of the finest kids that I know, but you gotta recruit at their schools, just like, you do inside the Beltway, so to speak. So I'd like each one of you to kind of give me a snapshot of what your agencies are doing to build relationship, especially with smaller historically black colleges across the country, and how the Office of National Cyber Director promotes outreach to smaller HBCUs. And we'll start with Mr. Henson.
Thank you, Ranking Member. I completely agree with you on the need to expand our outreach far outside the Beltway. We have launched programs and built recruiting partnerships with organizations all across the country, including many HBCUs and minority-serving institutions. That has helped populate the ranks of the Intelligence and Cybersecurity Diversity Fellowship Program, our Cybersecurity Internship Program, and our entry-level cohorts into the Cyber Talent Management System with a wide range of individuals. I'll also add that we can't just focus on bringing talent from around the country into DC. We have to meet talent where they are. Not everyone wants to work in the National Capital Region. We have stood up offices in other areas, including one in Mississippi, where we have our legacy data center, but as we have moved to the cloud, we have focused on expanding our cybersecurity hiring out of that center in Stennis, Mississippi, have another one in Arizona as well, and are looking to build on that effort.
Thank you. Ms. Beavers.
Thank you, Ranking Member. The Department of Defense has over 450 schools as part of our National Cybersecurity Academic Excellence Program. They are primarily state schools, and we have expanded that into including the two-year non-degree programs, the two-year degree programs, I should say, as well as a number of scholarships that we have been promoting to bring in non-traditional workforce. We also have a pilot underway that is promising. It's a little early to report too much detail, but we started with about 50,000 non-traditional cyber potential employees, got that curated down to about 6,000 that were qualified and interested. And the most exciting part is this was from populations that had not been part of the DoD pipeline before. So there is work to be done, but we have been very aggressive in expanding our recruiting over the years and building out that academic cooperation to include the recent stand-up of our Cyber Academic Engagement Office that I just signed last month per the NDAA from 24. So we will be having more information on this in the future, and I can take for the record to bring back specific numbers if that is what you're looking for.
Mr. Petersen?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So at NIST, we have a summer undergraduate research fellowship program called SURF, and I'm pleased to report that one of those SURF students is with me today from Hampton University and HBCU. It's one of many ways that we actively recruit and try to involve students from minority-serving institutions. We also have a program called Professional Research Experience Program, or PREP, and that is a grant program with several different institutions, including MSIs. And I, again, currently have a couple students working with us from Morgan State University that are PhD students. And then finally, because of our commitment to diversity and inclusion and the very question that you asked, this fall in October, as part of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, our Cybersecurity Career Week will be doing an event targeted, particularly at HBCUs, to make sure those students are career ready and faculty and advisors are available to support them.
Thank you. Mr. Mo?
Okay, real quick is that for us is that we're trying to remove barriers and broadening pathways, which means we have to meet people where they're at. So we've been to Norfolk University, which is an HBCU in Virginia, and then we invited about 10 to 12 HBCUs to learn about how to become and get designation for this NCAE program. And on top of that, we are also leaning heavily with our ecosystem stakeholder partners. Those are the ones who engage with the 450 NCAE schools, the 104 SF Scholarship for Service schools, who would actually get the students be interested in cyber. And some of those commitments are about giving hands-on experience and learning to those students in those minority-serving institutions. Last week, National Cyber Director was just in Tulsa, and a few weeks before we were in Tucson at Piedmont Community College.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, I ask unanimous consent to submit in the record a statement from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers on AI and workforce.
Without objection.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Strong, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Beavers, as you know, employers in defense industrial base prefer applicants with experience and a security clearance. The Cyberforce Incubator program at the University of Alabama in Huntsville recruits hundreds of students per year, nominates the students for security clearances, and places the students into internships on Redstone Arsenal and within the defense industrial base. Ms. Beavers, how does your office leverage university-based workforce development programs like this one at UAH?
So we partner very closely with organizations to bring in students into our scholarship programs as well as internships. And through our cyber academic engagement office, we will be expanding that partnership to make better use of the opportunities out there with education, to bring our supply side even all the way back into the K through 12 and grow the cyber talent starting earlier. So it has been a work in progress for a number of years for the Department of Defense to partner with various academic institutions. It is primarily through our academic engagement program, our scholarships and our National Centers for Academic Excellence. So we're looking forward to really building out our academic engagement, because we think of the defense industrial base is a great feeder for capabilities into the Department of Defense. We need a similar type of very robust feeder to bring talent into the Department of Defense from the cybersecurity perspective.
I'd agree with you 100%. We actually have a statewide cyber high school in Huntsville, Alabama that's been very successful. And then if you go back just to the local schools there, having science and starting at the high schools and doing internships has proven very beneficial to our industrial base. Mr. Petersen, I understand that the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, has a requirement to develop guidance related to the cybersecurity and privacy of genomic data. Universities and other technical organizations, including my district, are meaningfully contributing to the NIST's program. Progress in establishing the standards and best practices for cyber protection and genomic data. With the increasing demand for cybersecurity workforce across the nation, would this effort be expanded to include the involvement of more students?
Thank you for that question. And I should add that I'm also the interim chief of the Applied Cybersecurity Division, which includes that NCCOE facility. And I know the director of the NCCOE as well, Sherry Pascoe, is relatively new. And because of our partnership and relationship, we've certainly talked about more academic engagement with the center, both faculty and students as well. We have a pretty robust set of summer interns there this summer and plans to work throughout the year. MITRE is the FFRDC for the center. They likewise have a number of students, so we'd be happy to explore that with you as well. And have personally spent a lot of time in Huntsville recognizing the excellent work that's happening in that community.
Thank you. My family recently moved there 8 generations ago and has never left. And as you know, Huntsville is the tip of the spear, and we want to be sure that we get the right folks working in the environment. Cybersecurity is a critical situation. We also have the cyber piece of the FBI currently under construction in Huntsville, where we'll be adding another 2,500 jobs that will do nothing but make Huntsville even stronger. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize gentleman from Louisiana, member of the subcommittee on cyber, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of us. We're investing over $60 billion annually in cybersecurity. Face significant shortages in trained personnel. Given this, it's clear that none of our protective systems, whether standards, technologies, or regulations, can be effective without well-trained workforce. Isn't it imperative to address this critical gap? And can you tell us measures that you're taking, particularly with HBCUs across the country, junior colleges and community colleges that have a plethora of individuals that may or may not be aware of the opportunities in cyberspace? Mr. Hysen?
Thank you, Congressman. We are actively focused both on training and developing our existing workforce, as well as building and strengthening partnerships with academic institutions, including HBCUs. We also know that it starts earlier than entering college, that we are, through CISA, building partnerships to support K through 12 curricula for cyber education across the country, and have trained thousands of educators this year to date there as well. As we are partnering with academic institutions, we've been focused on expanding our entry-level pathways, knowing that it is more important to bring in talent that is committed to growing and learning, and then building out robust training programs through the IT Academy that we are establishing at DHS to rotate entry-level talent throughout the department, give them those experiences and new skills to help them become productive members of our workforce.
Thank you. If everyone could just hit it real quickly, we got a little bit of time, but I'd like to just hear, if you have something to add there, that's fine. If you don't.
I'll go. So ONCD is working on increasing the number of HBCU to get the designation for National Cyber Center of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity. So we're doing that in partnership with the White House Initiative on HBCUs. So what we're doing is we're trying to share some of the information with the HBCU administrators so that they know how to kind of get the designation.
Do we actively have recruiting and job fairs on college campuses across the country to encourage young people? 100 years ago when I was in undergraduate school, I remember there was always some type of job fair going on, whether it was the FBI or whatever, different agencies would come in and meet with juniors and seniors to encourage them to potentially.
We absolutely do, and I will absolutely defer to my colleagues here on some of the examples of what we are doing. But the key here is that most people, when they see the word cyber, they just don't see themselves doing those jobs, right? So
But it's weird because our children, I know my kids can put a computer together and take it apart and do all kind of programming, but somehow that still has a little bit of fear associated with it. But we know that kids are super bright particularly when it comes to technology.
Which is why it's even more important to, a hearing like today elevates the cyber career and jobs, right? So I think it's up to all of us to be able to go to each and every single individual, even talk to some of the parents about these type of opportunities for them.
Ms. Beavers, how are candidates for state and local offices utilizing AI tools to enhance their campaigns despite concerns from experts and lawmakers about potential generative A1 attacks on elections? And equally as important is how are we combating against the nefarious actors who are using AI to portray something that isn't real in the way of someone's likeness or voice?
Congressman, I'd like to defer to my distinguished colleague, Mr. Hysen.
Certainly.
Happy to take that, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, Congressman, I agree with your concerns on generative AI in elections. It's an area that CISA is working on actively with state and local election administrators. We need to better train our election administrators on how to reach out to their electorates. We provide no-cost training to thousands of state and local election administrators across the country. Overall, generative AI today, I look at as a problem of scale. Their video and voice impersonation was possible before generative AI. It is just easier and faster with the tools that are available. One of the areas that I think is particularly promising is looking at content authenticity and making sure that as government officials, as candidates, we can label the information we are putting out as authentic to make sure that it's more difficult to impersonate.
Thank you. My time has expired. Thank you, sir.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Pfluger, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the witnesses for being here and talking about this issue. I represent Angelo State University. It's a cyber center of excellence. They've taken steps in partnership with NSA and other government agencies to start developing the workforce in a way. Here's why this is important to me. When we think about the areas that provide that type of workforce, I think one of the big areas that is really missing is rural America. And that's why I'm passionate about what President Ronnie Hawkins is doing. Former retired three-star general from the Air Force, led DOD in its effort to transform the cyber side of our warfighting domain. And I'd like to hear really from each of you, how can a school like Angelo State, a rural serving institution with 12 to 14,000 students throughout the entirety of its programs, how can they be successful? And what's the advice or what's the vector that they need to go and other institutions like them to provide this workforce for our country? And we'll just start and go down the line.
Absolutely. Thank you, Congressman. And I strongly agree on the importance of building relationships with rural communities and pathways into public service. We participating in the NSA Centers for Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity is a great start. We're a proud partner with the NSA on that program. I would also say for any training institution right now, recognizing the pace of new developments in this field and ensuring that we are training our workforce not on any one specific technology that may be out of date very quickly, but on how to stay current, how to leverage increased automated and AI-based systems, and how to really stay on top of new and emerging threats is the most important thing these organizations can be doing.
Thank you, Ms. Beavers.
So I think leveraging the great work that's being done on the cyber workforce frameworks that have been built that actually identified the qualifications and the skills, and then also exploring opportunities for outreach and fun events that the DoD sponsors, like hackathons and things like that, to really increase the student body's excitement about getting involved. Mm-hmm. And so I think and encouraging internships would be my recommendation.
Which I know that they have focused on that. By the way, they're a minority serving institution, mostly Hispanic population that comes from our area in West Texas, and they really are proud of that work because they're sending good young men and women into the workforce. Mr. Peters?
Yeah, so I'm a product of rural America, so I have a soft spot for what it means. And I would just add to the discussion about community colleges, most community colleges are in rural areas or serving rural populations as well. In addition to the focus of this hearing on the demand, the 500,000 cybersecurity workers, there are a lot of other demographics that are working against us, like declining birth rates and the aging of Americans and the like. So we've run a series of webinars this year really focusing on underserved and underrepresented populations, starting with rural America, because there's lots of universities. We had the chancellor of the University of North Dakota system speaking about what they're doing across their vast state that is very rural, and a lot of tribal organizations as well. But specifically to the point, I think there's also a statistic about people tend to stay where they go to college or where they grow up. So the pandemic has opened up opportunities for remote work and telework and more flexible opportunities where they may be able to stay in their rural community but work, for a company or a government organization across the country. So I think part of the challenge and opportunity is to open up also more of those remote opportunities that maybe previously didn't exist.
It's a great point, and something that we're also working on, which is extending broadband and access to these communities, and there are several committees doing that. We'll leave you the last word.
Well, I actually met Charlotte from Angelo State. She invited me to join the Mayor's Cup
That's
in
fantastic.
San Angelo. I would say I was one of the people who sent her congratulations email when the program got a CA designation. And the key thing is that we need to start elevating people's work. A lot of people are doing good work. I think the role of ONCD and the White House is to elevate some of this work so that we can plug them into the ecosystem that they need, right? It's not about just one institution. I don't want folks at Angelo State to think that they are the only one that has to do it all on their own. To plug them into the ecosystem, get private sector employers involved, get the state and local government involved, so we can all do this together.
That's a great point, and I hope that if you have not made contact with President Hawkins and Angelo State, that you will, because they are doing an amazing job, and they're not the only ones, but they also have an Air Force base there, Goodfellow Air Force Base, that does intelligence, and a lot of that intelligence has to do with the issues that you were talking about. I know time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Teneter, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman and Ranking Member, for this important hearing, and thank you for our witnesses. Mr. Hysen, you mentioned about 2,000 or so cyber security positions being open. How many independent contractors does the department currently hires?
Congressman, I don't have an exact number, but it would be certainly in our IT contractors number in the many thousands.
On an average, what is their compensation?
We compensate our contractors for services, not individuals. In some cases, though, individual IT and cybersecurity personnel can make more working on a contract. In some cases, they are making more in government.
So any attempt made to recruit these independent contractors on a long-term employment basis in public service?
It's a great point and something we're actively focused on. We're leveraging the cyber talent management system to look at areas where we need more federal technology expertise in our workforce. We've done that with our Network Operations and Security Center, where we have been rebalancing what was predominantly a very contract-heavy workforce and are now adding in additional levels through these new hiring authorities of federal personnel. It's something we're looking to expand.
Okay. Now, I understand United States has a shortage of cybersecurity experts. Is that the case with other countries, especially? What do we know about China? Are they hurting for cybersecurity experts like United States is?
I can't speak to that in particular. I will say in my conversations with our allies and my peers in those countries that they have similar challenges. But we also, through DHS, are looking at and committed to expanding pathways to high-skilled immigration so that we can continue to attract the best and the brightest around the world to our country.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that high-skilled immigration a little bit, because it looks like a lot of good programs have been initiated by and a certainly we must provide these trainings to candidates in the United States domestically to train and develop these skills, encourage Americans to enter into these jobs. But while we do that, is there any interest in either special visa programs, immigration programs to encourage expertise that is available across the world?
Absolutely, Congressman. And I'll give one particular example with artificial intelligence. In his executive order, President Biden directed the department to take a number of steps to streamline our high-skilled immigration pathways to attract the best in AI and related fields. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services has completed or is on track for all 6 of the taskings they were given in that executive order. That includes simplifying and streamlining our processes, as well as publishing standard information to make it easier for AI talent around the world to understand pathways into the United States.
Well, currently, our immigration system is so broken. Many skilled workforce, and I have spoken with many CEOs of technology companies, and their frustration is that it takes forever through the country quotas and the long lines that getting these skilled workforce to get the right visa, whether it is a H-1B visas or their green card, this process is taking years, if not decades, and that's hampering our ability to hire talent. What can be done to streamline some of this broken immigration system?
I completely agree, and fundamentally, we at the department look forward to continuing to work with Congress, where ultimately we need to see many of these reforms. We are doing everything we can to streamline processing within the bounds of current law. With H-1Bs, for example, this year for this H-1B cycle, we launched new technologies and a new online process that makes it easier and faster for companies and individuals to apply for those visas and for us to process them. So we're doing everything that we can within the confines of law.
All right, thank you so much. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Zell, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for holding this very important meeting, and thank you all for being here today. My district is home to several community colleges and higher education institutions that are leading the charge in bringing students into the cyber workforce. Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College hosts the Mississippi Cyber Initiative, which is a group of public and private organizations that support over 15 law enforcement agencies and Keesler Air Force Base cyber-related activities. I think we can learn a lot from these similar programs, and I know there's been some discussion about that today. Mr. Petersen, despite these programs and similar programs that you mentioned in your testimony, we're still facing a severe shortage of cyber workers. With the current programs in place, do you have any estimate how long it's going to take to fill 500,000? I know that's a big question growing in this. Any idea how long it's going to take for us to fill that gap?
So unfortunately, I don't have the crystal ball to tell you how long. And I think sometimes the answer is not how long or how many, but what are enterprises doing to managing their risk? And that's something certainly NIST is very committed to giving cybersecurity and privacy risk management frameworks that allow organizations to take the combination of technology, processes, and people to minimize their risk. I think the numbers in and of themselves don't really indicate the activity that's happening at the organizations or how new and emerging technologies may help to fill that gap. So the estimate is really not in time, but really in focus on what's going to minimize the risk of an enterprise.
Thank you. I'd kind of like to focus a little more on our national security implications. Even though cybersecurity jobs are well paid and offer high levels of job security, I think the lack of public awareness plays a role in our current workforce shortage. Mr. Petersen, what can Congress and institutions like this one in my district do to enhance public awareness and encourage students to see cybersecurity as a vital role in defending our country?
Well, Congressman, I'm pleased to say I actually visited Gulfport Community College last year, and they were hosting an event along with the Department of Commerce and the Department of Education on raising the bar. And what was impressive to me is how they brought together the stakeholders, not only locally, but across the state and across the region to really focus on the opportunities that exist, not only at community colleges, but in local communities to help individuals who are, quite frankly, below the poverty level have a career and opportunity in cybersecurity. And some of the stories I shared at the beginning are just one of the many ways that individuals can come into a cybersecurity career thanks to the efforts of community colleges like the one in your district.
Yeah, we've really worked hard to try to get that off the ground and keep people interested, you know. So, Ms. Beavers, with the current gap, I imagine that the Department of Defense, DOD, has to hire independent contractors. Do you have any idea how many independent contractors DOD has hired to alleviate the gap, and how much do they get paid?
Congressman, we have in the neighborhood of about 60,000 contractors within our cyber workforce within the Department of Defense. And like my distinguished colleague mentioned, it's under a contract.
Right.
So I would have to get back to you for average income.
Sure, I understand that, but you know, I know we could save some money if we could get regular folks hired, working full time, doing that, and you know, let's all try to do our part. I want to do everything I can to support you. You know, being my background in law enforcement is working in partnership with the community colleges and the military is just very important to us. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses. A robust cybersecurity workforce is vitally important to our national security, our homeland security, and our economic security as well, because, of course, in the private sector, billions and billions of dollars are stolen a year from average Americans because of cyber breaches to private companies as well as to government agencies. And cyber is also an opportunity to provide good-paying jobs for young people in a very promising and growing field. Cybersecurity jobs pay well, they're available, there are job openings all across the country, and we have to train the workforce to meet that need. Before I go any further, I just want to recognize my predecessor, former Congressman Jim Langevin, for his work on this committee, a longtime champion of cybersecurity, and continues to do that cybersecurity work now in the private sector, including in his leadership at the Rhode Island College Institute for Cybersecurity and Emerging Technologies, which is a really exciting hub that we are building in Rhode Island under Jim's leadership to do our part to meet these emerging workforce needs. So for young people who are interested in cybersecurity, we have to promote pathways into careers. We have to provide educational opportunities at the K through 12 level, at colleges and universities, and also alternative credentialing programs as well. And we need to grow the pipeline of cyber workers for the federal government and the private sector as well. Let me start with Mr. Mo. Can you speak specifically to the K through 12 arena and what we as a Congress can be doing and should be doing to better support school districts, particularly in under-resourced communities who may be interested in creating pathways and curricula to get young people introduced to cybersecurity at an early age?
I appreciate that question. Thank you so much. One of the things that we push for in the strategy is to make sure that we are teaching cyber concepts earlier in one's education. In middle school, when they're exploring career and whatnot, we want them to be able to know that cyber is a pathway. So there are a couple programs that we just paid to, bringing it up. It's CTE CyberNet. It's one way that we are teaching educators so that they can teach students about those cyber skills. We also have Gen Cyber Camps that, NSA and others have run. And then the other thing is because we, K-12 education policy generally run out of state governments, we have been partnering with private sector and various organizations to make sure that we're pushing some of those cyber education. There are commitments to gamified cyber, for example, to make sure that kids play some gamified games. There are also commitments to teach more cyber skills to girls and kids in K-12. So those are how we are going about it in terms of making sure that we bring some of this cyber stuff along in the K-12 arena.
Terrific. And Mr. Petersen, as has been discussed already, good jobs in cybersecurity don't necessarily require a 4-year degree, but they do require training. Can you speak specifically about the role of community colleges and what we could be doing to better support cybersecurity programs at those institutions?
Yeah, so earlier a question was asked about what are we doing to support community colleges, and I'm really pleased and proud that the National Science Foundation has regularly invested in a national center. Currently, it's the National Cybersecurity Training and Education Program run out of Whatcom Community College. They're a national resource to community colleges. They convene them, they prepare them, they actually mentor them to become national centers of academic excellence as well. So we need to raise and elevate the importance of community colleges, not only because of their accessibility, but quite frankly, they're very skills focused. They're hands-on, they're performance-based, and a lot of students can leave those programs either with a degree or a certificate or some type of credential and go directly into the workforce. Many of them go on to a 4-year school, but the 2-year colleges play an absolutely essential role in helping address the workforce shortage we're talking about today.
Thank you. And finally, where the Homeland Security Committee and the Department of Homeland Security has the need to attract cybersecurity talent as well. I just flag, I love the bipartisanship that's been exhibited in this hearing. I think we are all concerned about the need to attract and retain cyber talent. I will flag that in the Homeland Security Appropriations Bill that we are going to be considering on the floor later today, my colleagues across the aisle are proposing a $2 million cut to Mr. Hysen's office relative to last year and $6 million below the administration's recommended amount. So I just suggest that perhaps we revisit that. This is a time to be doubling down on these recruitment efforts. And Mr. Hysen, if you can just talk about what you need in order to be able to recruit cyber talent to DHS.
Thank you, Congressman. And the President's budget for fiscal year 25 does include those investments in my office and across DHS. There is some specific funding we've requested there in artificial intelligence to help us build out our core capabilities to train our workforce to be ready for AI and to leverage and bring AI expertise into the department for cybersecurity and other purposes.
So perhaps we can all work together to try to plus up that funding as we go through the appropriations process. And I'll yield back. Thank you.
The gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Higgins, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Petersen, according to your background, sir, you are our education specialist here. We're clearly facing a challenge in filling the roles that our nation needs in cybersecurity and the cyber tech performance realm. The workforce challenges across every industry are quite significant, including healthcare and manufacturing. I mean, we can't get enough welders, so it should be no surprise in a nation that is noted for its work ethic. If we can't get enough welders, we're probably going to have problems getting enough cyber workers. Are you familiar with the terms being called the disconnected youth or the disconnected generation? For the benefit of Americans tuning in, we're talking about an alarmingly large percentage of what's referred to as Gen Z that is neither working nor in school. Traditionally, historically, that was a deal. As you became a young adult American, you went to work or you went to school. In some cases did both. So if this is the generation that's the demographic that we would seek to fill cyber positions from, and if that generation of Americans is not interested in working or going to school, how are we going to pull them into training? Do you have some insight into that? And then I have a follow-up question for you, sir.
Thank you for the question. I am very familiar with that demographic, also known as opportunity youth. They're 18 to 25-year-olds who, as you said, either didn't complete their education or are currently unemployed. I think that is one of many populations that we consider underserved or underrepresented that we need to target and lift up. This is not a problem that's solved just by getting rid of four-year degrees. We need people with two-year degrees, four-year degrees, but we also need to address the needs of that population you described who need mentoring, they need opportunities. Registered apprenticeships, as we've already talked about, may be a great foot in the door for them to get some workplace experience and have a job opportunity. But that is a very much critical population, not only for cybersecurity, but for other skilled trades that we need across the country to make sure we're helping to support those individuals.
So with your background in education and your position with the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, what would you recommend to Congress, sir, and to this committee? How could the legislative branch use Article 1 authorities to work with our sovereign states and our educational institutions at every level, certificate and collegiate level, educational opportunities for this generation of Americans that we're going to have to rely upon to get engaged in the cyber workforce? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so I would start with think locally, and you authorize NIST to give these grants called regional alliances and multi-stakeholder partnerships to stimulate cybersecurity education and workforce development in your communities. We gave out 18 grants this past year. We're about to announce 15 more community grants.
Say that again, please, sir. You gave out what?
18 grants this past fiscal year, and we're about to announce 15 more based on an appropriation from the Congress. But this really brings local communities together, local schools, local community colleges, universities, training organizations, nonprofits, economic development organizations, even individuals like yourself, to make sure you're addressing the needs of local employers in your locality or region. So a lot of what we're talking about is at the national level, which is great resources, but where the rubber really meets the road is in your districts, in your communities. And that grant program, much like the ecosystem work that's described in the National Cyber Workforce and Education Strategy, is about strengthening local ecosystems.
Thank you, sir, for your very insightful answer. I concur, Mr. Chairman. We have to work at the sovereign state and local level within the states to address the cyber workforce challenge. Thank you, sir.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Ivey, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me pick up where you just left off, Mr. Petersen. My district is Prince George's County, sort of the inner part. I'm between DC and Steny Hoyer, and it goes all the way up to, I call it the Research Triangle area, where we have the University of Maryland, we've got NASA at one corner, we've got the Agriculture Research Center, we've got NOAA there, and just a few miles up from that triangle area, there's NSA Fort Meade and FDA. Naval Academy also is huge on cyber. So, the regional grants piece that you just mentioned, I was wondering if that's something that is available in my immediate area, and if so, tell me about it.
Yeah, so as I said, we recently funded 18. We're in the process of merit reviewing applications for 15 additional awards, and this is money appropriated by Congress that may be available for additional grants in the future. So that is absolutely one opportunity that could be available to your constituents.
All right, and this would be an application piece that's going to be coming in the near future?
Yeah, a notice of funding opportunity that would be publicly announced.
What's the timeline roughly for when the next 15 are going to be coming available?
Well, the current 15, the deadline occurred in May, so we're currently reviewing and we'll award those later this summer or early fall. Whether there's future awards is dependent on appropriations.
All right, Mr. Mo, I wanted to follow up with you. I think Mr. Magaziner asked you about teaching. What cyber skills are being taught, and you mentioned that you want to make sure that they're available. And I'm looking at sort of I was going to say K through 12, but it's probably more realistically middle school and high school. What specific cyber skills are we talking about that public schools should be making available, say at the high school level?
What we are pushing, thank you so much for the question. What we are pushing in the strategy is the idea of the foundational cyber skills. So it's not a skill on a particular technology. It's about a skill in which you know how to use technology. You can port your skills from one technology to another. It's about things like pattern recognition, understanding abstraction, as well as problem solving. The reason why we're pushing for those foundational skills in K-12 and middle school is because once you have those skills, you can use those skills to learn other technical skills, right? So I've seen school districts that actually go the route of certifications. I've seen school districts that go the route of hands-on learning on some of those curriculum that we have online. But for us to be able to future-proof our workforce and make sure that we build a dynamic workforce that can use any sort of technology in the future, we need to push foundational cyber skills.
All right, so those would be coming through, just to really try and narrow this down, math and science classes that are offered?
Math, science, there are like career technical education curriculum, sometimes depending on the pathways of the schools locally. So those are where those skills are generally taught. Okay, and are there particular programs that are available, maybe not in my district, but it's anywhere in the country, where they actually they were put together with this in mind to prepare students to be able to go into this line of work and develop these specific skills? Right now, a lot of those are done through, CTE CyberNet has a way to kind of teach some of those cyber skills, and they, by the time they get to the student, it's about like problem solving with technology. And the CTE, is that available at the high school level, or is that the middle school and high school level? Middle school, okay. Then I did have a question about the contractors piece, because I think somebody said there's 60,000 contractors. Is that what you, Ms. Beavers?
Yes, Congressman. Okay,
so I'm looking at a document here that's put out by the state of Maryland that says that cybersecurity and information security jobs do not yet have a defined standard industrial classification number. And I wanted to know if that is the case for the federal government or not.
So the Department of Defense has been on this journey for nearly 15 years now to actually categorize and classify.
I got 40 seconds.
So I will have to take that for the record. I think that is our best estimate.
Let me tell you why I'm asking. In part because I want to make sure that from a contracting standpoint, we want diversity about students and the like who get a chance to obtain these skills. I also want to make sure there's diversity with the opportunity to get the contracts. And so if you have the codes in place, that's one of the ways that the government monitors and can track how the contracts are being made available and whether they're being done in a diverse way or not. So if you can get back to me, if you could give me a written response on that, and if you could give me a general sense too of, and you're with DOD? What DOD? She nodded for the record.
Yes, Congressman.
Flashback to trial. If you can give me a sense too of what the Department of Defense is doing to make sure that it's making outreach efforts to make sure that there are diverse opportunities for contractors and that there's a diverse field of contractors that are providing the work for the federal government. And thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. D'Esposito, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here this afternoon. I guess right now, almost 85% of federal cyber positions are telework eligible. While I don't always agree with everyone working from home, obviously it's a reality that we are all dealing with. Obviously, it's something that CISA has leveraged. So, Mr. Hysen, how does DHS ensure that there are strong cybersecurity practices upheld for the remote workforce?
Thank you, Congressman. It's been something that has been a new and evolving challenge since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have updated our annual required cybersecurity trainings for all employees to make sure that they are incorporating safe cybersecurity practices for telework and remote work. Among other things, that includes things like thinking about and being aware of smart devices that are in your workspace that may be recording, as well as looking at the security of your home network. We will continue to do that.
Now I'm going to take it a little bit closer to home. Unfortunately, on Long Island, where both Mr. Garbarino and myself, Mr. Lalota, Mr. Swazi represent, we have witnessed successful cyber attacks that have greatly disrupted not only local government, but obviously the quality of life for the people that we serve. And it's clear that both the public and the private sector are having issues with filling all of the cybersecurity roles that are currently open. So this is really for any of you. How do these workforce issues extend to and impact, like I mentioned, local municipalities and leave them open to an attack such as the one I referred to?
I can say I think we see that those challenges every day through our work, largely through CISA with state and local governments. It's one of the reasons why when we developed our new state and local cybersecurity grant program, which launched 2 years ago, we made developing state and local cybersecurity workforce a key element that we are looking for municipalities and state governments to apply for funding for.
Okay. I was also excited to see the newly released Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies Appropriations Bill. There was funding that I requested for an updated IT system for the Nassau County Police Department to help them prevent from future cybersecurity attacks. Bolstering our systems is obviously one thing that, again, those local municipalities can do to guard against cyber attacks. What are some of the, and this is again for any of you, what are some of the short-term solutions for these localities that us as Congress can work towards to help our cyber workforce?
Thank you so much for that question. I think registered apprenticeship, it's one way to do it because it allows people with the potential to do the work to also learn on the job. One of the things that we want to make sure is that we have those quality pathways, and then we also have, we can then match folks who are interested to do the work where we need it to be. The other option is cyber clinics. We have funded 4 cyber clinics so far in the from the federal government. Cyber clinics, as a clinic model, allows students who are in college today to also practice those skills and have those hands-on experience while helping the public, in this case, private and local government as well.
And the cyber clinics that you referenced, how do you do the outreach, or is that funding that's provided to an organization, or how is the outreach to get individuals onto those clinics?
Right now, it's done on a cyber clinic by cyber clinic basis,
okay.
And then that's where we kind of come in. We're trying to kind of make sure that everyone is coordinated, and make sure that as part of the cyber clinic, they reach out to their students,
okay,
to get more students, as well as each cyber clinic sort of have their own mission. And for us is to kind of influence the mission, make sure that they serve a particular constituencies that we need them to be. So.
And how has the attendance, so to speak, been to the first 4 clinics that you've supported?
We just started that funding, so
okay.
I can take that back for the record and perhaps provide your office with that information.
That'd be great. With that, my time's expired. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. We are going to now, I'm going to start a second round because I can, questions. Mr. Hysen, I want to follow up. My colleague from New York just asked you about this. You talked about the state local grant program. Has that money, the first round of that money, gone out yet to the states?
Chairman, my understanding is that it is the $185 million that we allocated in fiscal 22 that has started to go out, but it's a program that my office doesn't directly administer, so would have to follow up for more details.
Let's follow up, because I believe the money has gone out to the states, but I don't know how much of the actual grants have gone to to the localities, the counties, the towns who really face the problem. They can't afford to have a CISO. And my county in Suffolk County in Long Island got hit with a major cyber attack. And if you can follow up and let us know where that money is, how far it is in going out to the actual people it's supposed to go to, that would be great. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. I also, Ms. Hysen, I want to focus on your testimony highlights the strides DHS has made in hiring through the Cybersecurity Talent Management System, or CTMS, and the department announced yesterday that the first 10 hires for its first 10 hires for AI Corps In this committee's February hearing with Secretary Mayorkas, I sounded the alarm over CISA's lack of operational technology or OT staff. A GAO report in March found that CISA has only 4 employees and 5 contractors on hand to respond to attacks on OT infrastructure. I believe you have made some hires since then, specifically for OT, but can you tell me what DHS is doing specifically to attract OT technical staff?
Absolutely. It's an area that CISA has been very significantly prioritizing. We developed, I believe, specific positions under CTMS to specifically reach out to talent with expertise in OT security and industrial control systems and related fields. I know we've had several rounds of solicitations, and I do believe we brought some staff on board.
Now, you have CTMS, which was meant to streamline the hiring of cyber workers, through exemptions from many of the other federal hiring go through. Can you tell me under the CTMS how many employees have been hired under CTMS and how many are still going through the traditional process? I have a number here that says by 2023, CISA had only hired 80 people through CTMS while still making majority of its 516 hires through the traditional process. What is DHS doing to make sure that CTMS is being utilized more so we can get people onboarded?
Yes, and that number is for CISA's own hiring. We're at 189 across my office, CISA and FEMA today. CTMS is not going to be the answer for every position. Traditional Title V hiring will still play an important role. That's why we're looking to streamline through leveraging direct hire authority from OPM and other sources of traditional hiring. But we are pushing to aggressively expand CTMS. We have are working to bring it on board with additional components. We are also looking across the offices that are already using it to expand utilization for some of their existing hires.
Okay. This is for anybody who really wants to answer it. We've talked about moving away 4-year degrees, even some away from 2-year degrees, focusing on skills-based, maybe some certifications. Is there a role for the federal government to coming up with a approved list of certification courses or programs or curriculum, so not just the federal government, but states can use it, companies can use it as a basis for, all right, these are the type of certifications, this is the type of skills that we want to see. Is that something that the federal government should be coming up, that we should be coming up with? Or is that really not the role for the federal government? And anybody, just jump in. Ms. Rowe, you want to go? Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. What I would say is that technology is changing so fast. By the time, if you go through some form of a process, the skills that we'll be looking for, as well as the type and the curriculum would have changed, right? So that's why when we think about skills-based, sometimes it's not even about the specific skills, right? It is about the specific skills, which is what the framework is providing us. But the approach itself gives us a new way of thinking about this. And that is, we just want to make sure that folks have the basic skills to learn new additional skills.
I know we don't want to be the be-all, and I know because passing legislation or doing regulations takes forever, and this moves very quickly. But, a lot of people don't know where to start. Not everybody has a CISO. I mean, is it worthwhile for us to come up with a base minimum standard, or and maybe not legislatively, but, have CISA come up with a minimum standard or minimum, these are the things you should be looking for, these are the certifications you should be having. Hysen, Mr. Hysen, you can jump in.
Chairman, I believe that aligning to the NIST framework is the right way to do that. As my colleague said, I think these specific certifications are changing so rapidly, but I do think saying that we need certifications or other demonstrations that candidates meet baseline skills with some flexibility to apply that in different ways would be most valuable.
I appreciate it. My second 5 minutes is up. I now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Thompson, for 5 minutes of questions.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And kind of in line with the chairman's questions, historically, the federal government's long, cumbersome hiring process has undermined its ability to recruit cyber talent. Clearance processes and suitability assessments, in particular, created unacceptable delays between offers and onboarding, and sometimes by the time you make the offer, that person's no longer available. So what are your agencies doing to expedite onboarding of cyber talent? And I guess as a second piece to it is, how is ONCD supporting these efforts? So, Mr. Mo, I'll kind of see if you can backfill the answers.
I'm intimately familiar with those challenges, Ranking Member. It starts with administration-wide initiatives like the Trusted Workforce 2.0 effort that is streamlining suitability and security clearance processes government-wide. We're seeing great results through the early stages of implementation. But we're also actively looking to streamline which positions actually need a clearance. If you're not going into a SCIF looking at classified material, we shouldn't be holding up your hiring on that. So we have been looking to reduce requirements, expand the use of interim clearances at both the secret and top secret level, which can be issued faster as well. Another key element of CTMS is that it keeps candidates in a ready talent pool so that when we have vacancies arise, we can reach out to candidates that have gone through the first stages of their assessment process already, and then just start from there, which can significantly reduce time to hire.
So technically, it's not one size fit all.
Absolutely.
Okay. Ms. Beavers?
The Department of Defense has a similar program, the Cyber Accepted Service, which has some direct hire authorities, which enables us to bring folks in quicker. We've also revised our hiring policies to eliminate the time and grade requirements and the previous grade requirements, so it's skills-based. But there is additional work that could be done to help us expedite that with greater flexibility in salaries and things like that. So we are still continuing to work on reducing the time to hire, particularly within this valuable workforce.
So we have made a little bit of progress in terms of the security clearance times, right? So the average numbers for top secret went from 411 to 155 days, and for secret went from 173 to 53 days. PEC has set a very aggressive target that they are executing on for top secret to be 45 days and secret to be 25 days. But if you take a step back in terms of like the whole hiring process, there's a clearance, but there's also like how we can move faster together in interagency. One of the things that ONCD is coordinating with our partner at Office of Personnel Management and OMB is the idea of a pool hiring process, so that we have like one certificate that multiple agencies can jump on. So we have found that has sort of like reduced the time for folks to be onboarded. In terms of there are other stuff such as like Tech to Gov hiring event that we do. We have at least 2 of those events already with about 1,700 people being interested in jobs, and we have offered 150 tentative job offers. So we're doing, like a lot of things in federal hiring. There's a lot of there's no one single solution. There's no silver bullet. We are fixing a lot of these smaller processes along the way. Another effort that ONCD is driving is to make sure that we have job descriptions that are more focused on skills that are sort of like usable by, multiple different agencies. And obviously this is done in conjunction through the working groups that we have, in which all the partners here are part of, so that is something that will, slim down on the hiring process from job posting to candidates onboarding.
Yeah, one of the challenges that I find as a member, and very rarely do I not come in contact with somebody who's looking for a job. But they say, I go to these fairs, they give me the brochures, but there's nothing between the job fair and the brochures that hold me. I think somewhere, if we can give people hope that this jobs fair is not just a check the box kind of deal, we might get some good people, but the confidence that it's not more than a check the box event for that staffer to meet whatever their numbers are. Help me out. Are we changing that perception?
Ranking Member, I think it's a shift from strictly thinking about hiring to thinking about talent and recruiting. There's a key difference in applying for a government job versus a private sector job, where if you apply for a government job, you get automated emails from USA Jobs when you hit different stages. In many private sector roles, particularly in cybersecurity, you have a recruiter who is actively talking to you and working with you through that process, which can still in some cases be longer. That's why there's been some efforts from OMB to build out federal talent teams that go beyond just HR specialists in hiring and build those relationships with candidates throughout the hiring process. I do think that's something we need to expand.
I would like to highlight that the Department of Defense is also pursuing that type of a hiring pipeline development. So we are maturing the cyber accepted service to be more aligned with the civilian hiring practices, hence the pilot that I mentioned earlier.
I just think that we have to meet people where they're at. A lot of times, some of the success stories that we've heard is because the professors told the students that, yep, the process takes longer, but once you kind of get the job and get the clearance as you're an intern, that's how we kind of pull some of the people in. So a lot of times it's about educating our stakeholders and partners on the ground that this is real, right? Then there's some accountability, that some relationship and partnerships are being formed, and that's what ONCD is trying to do when we kind of go around the country to talk to those folks. We're trying to establish those real relationships that will make sure that they will tell their students that these are real opportunities, and with some more explanation that they know what to expect.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. In closing, I just want to say thank you to all the witnesses for coming today. Sorry about votes screwing up, and I wish we had some more participation. I do know that this committee takes this issue very seriously. I know the chairman takes this issue very seriously. As I said in his when I read his opening statement, he will be submitting legislation soon to help address the shortfall, both on the specifically in the federal agencies. We definitely take this issue very seriously, and I think you all be ready to expect some questions for the record to be submitted. I know I have some that I could have gone another 4 or 5 times, and I'm sure my colleagues could have as well. But I do really want to thank you all for being today and for your patience during votes. So the members of this committee, like I said, may have some additional questions for witnesses, and we would ask witnesses to respond to these in writing. Pursuant to Committee Rule 7D, the hearing record will be held open for 7 days. Without objection, this committee stands adjourned.